It's not just the despairing family and friends of the 239 men, women and children who were on board Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 who deserve answers about what happened to the plane. Everyone who flies needs to know where the Boeing 777 is and why it ended up there. Big modern airliners can't just vanish without explanation. In a few days, there'll be another grim MH370 milestone. It'll be 5 years since the plane went missing. But Danica Weeks, whose husband Paul was a passenger, will never lose hope this mystery will eventually be solved. And to help, she's meeting Malaysia's Prime Minister, Dr. Mahathir bin Mohamad, to convince him more must be done.
Let's go through here. And then into the middle.
Into the middle. Through the middle. Oh, this is the real maze. Maze of all mazes.
The enduring pain of MH370 is written in lives like Danica Weeks and her sons, 8-year-old Lincoln and 6-year-old Jack. How does a mother tell them their father Paul is never coming back, that no one even knows where he is?
But you know, when you look at Lincoln and Jack, I mean, look at them. They're 6 and 8. You know, they were babies. And I just go, what happened? And it just stares at you, because you know what Paulie wanted to do with them. And he's not there. I don't even know where the hell he is. I just feel so awful. I just want to bring him back. I just want to grab him.
MH370. It's the flight number that will haunt public imagination.
A Boeing 777 is missing. Flight MH370 would vanish from radar contact.
The early hours of March 8, 2014. 239 men, women and children perished. No clue to their fate has ever been found.
Every single plane crash has an answer. MH370, we have nothing.
But could things be about to change with Malaysia's strongman Prime Minister back in charge? Mr. Prime Minister, what do you think happened to MH370? Tonight, an unprecedented meeting with Dr. Mahathir and, on his order, access to the investigation's secret vault. Is this flap the smoking gun in aviation's greatest mystery?
You can see it's actually a turn to the left, then start a long turn to the right, and then do another left turn.
In the 5 years since MH370 disappeared, 60 Minutes has been chasing the truth.
Every day that went by, the mystery grew deeper, and this became very quickly unlike any accident in aviation's history.
With every new breakthrough, suspicion, even certainty to some aviation experts, has closed in on MH370's Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah.
He was killing himself. Unfortunately, he was killing everybody else on board, and he did it deliberately.
But in all that time, those in charge of the Malaysian investigation have never agreed to answer the allegation that the pilot in command committed the worst crime in aviation history.
That's it.
Until now.
I went numb. That is one of the airline's nightmare, my nightmare, that to find out that one of our flights have gone missing.
Crisis manager Fawad Sharouji was in charge of Malaysia Airlines' response on that terrible day 5 years ago. He's one of the top-level players in the MH370 tragedy, who's now speaking for the first time. How many things went wrong that night?
Everything went wrong.
In all your decades of experience, has anything like this ever happened before?
Nope, never. It was on the early morning of 8th of March at 2:30 in the morning when I received the first phone call that we have lost contact with MH370. And then I knew that there was something wrong, seriously wrong. So we immediately activated our code red. I left my house immediately to our emergency operation center.
Fuad was not only managing a crisis unlike any in aviation history, for him it was also personal. The man at the controls of MH370 was a man he knew well, popular Malaysia Airlines pilot Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah. Was there anything peculiar about his final words?
His final words was, "Good night, MH370.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
His voice was calm, relatively calm. There was no signs of anxiety at all. So there's nothing abnormal with his last words.
Most people in the professional aviation industry believe that after that transmission, Zahari hijacked his own aircraft, killed those on board by depressurizing it, and flew it to its doom in the middle of nowhere in the southern Indian Ocean.
For journalist and author Ian Higgins, MH370 has become a professional obsession. What would the world have been thinking when MH370 went missing?
Well, I think the world would have been thinking that this plane must be found and will be found within a few days, because they are always found, the wreckage or whatever, or the debris, and people thought, well, 1, 2, 3, 4 days, we'll have the answer to the mystery.
In Perth, Danica Weeks and her then infant sons at home were waiting for a call from her husband Paul, due to land in Beijing on MH370. 2 weeks later, Charles Woolley was with her when Malaysia Airlines finally declared there was no hope.
This news is clearly devastating for the families.
I remember saying then that 18 days was such a long time to wait. 1800 days has been hell on earth.
For the past 5 years, Danica has refused to give up hope of finding an answer for what happened to Paul. Now that hope is taking her to Malaysia. For weeks, on Danica's behalf, 60 Minutes has been in contact with Malaysia's iconic leader, Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad. And in a move that stunned even his closest advisors, he's agreed for the first time to meet a relative of one of those lost on MH370. Danica will plead her case directly to Dr. Mahathir, to reopen the investigation, to renew the search for the flight that took her husband.
We're here for a very good reason, darling. To help find Daddy.
Do you see this meeting with Dr. Mahathir as your last hope?
Yes, this is it. This is my last-ditch effort. And as I say, it's the pinnacle. It's as high as I can go. And it'd just be nice to, speak with him and really get him to understand where us as the families are coming from.
How significant is it, in your view, that Dr. Mahathir has agreed to meet with Danica?
I think it's very significant. I think what it shows is that, despite all, he is open to listening to the possibility of reopening a search. And of course, if he were to decide on such a course of action, the country, which supports him greatly, would be right behind him.
What makes this meeting remarkable is that for years, authorities here have closed ranks against foreigners scrutinising Malaysia's handling of MH370, defending the country's reputation with official silence. But with Dr. Mahathir's new government, that silence may be breaking. Coming up, damning evidence. The smoking gun is an eerie course he plotted on a home flight simulator program. Why MH370's captain is to blame.
There's nowhere to land anywhere even close to that part of the world.
And why Malaysia says he isn't.
Commit mass murder, no way.
No possibility.
No possibility. Certainly not the Captain Zahari that I know.
That's next on 60 Minutes. Five years on, and the theories around what happened to MH370 range from the mystifying to the ridiculous. But the one that most international experts now agree is the only reasonable explanation based on known facts is that MH370 was hijacked by its own pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmed Shah, who then committed an act of mass murder. But while his name rings in infamy around the world, here in Malaysia, his innocence is considered an almost sacred truth.
I think it's pretty simple. They don't want to lose face. It's very important in Asian cultures. It's a government-owned airline, and it's not a good look for Malaysia to have one of its nationals, one of its pilots, take 238 innocent people to their deaths.
But Malaysia Airlines crisis manager Fawad Sharouji will always defend his captain. For the record, did Captain Zahari deliberately crash MH370 into the southern Indian Ocean and kill everyone on board?
We don't believe so. For a person to actually take the lives of 239 passengers and crew on board, including his own life, must be a completely deranged person and madman, crazy. And none of that is a character of Captain Zahari.
Anybody that knows Captain would immediately tell you that he's not this kind of person that would do such a thing.
Peter Chong is another close friend of Zahari Ahmed Shah. The two were bonded by their passion for politics, which some speculate was the motivation for Captain Zahari to deliberately crash his plane. So he was very politically active?
He was very politically concerned.
Have you allowed yourself to believe the possibility that Captain Zahari did commit mass murder?
To commit mass murder, no way.
No possibility?
No possibility. Certainly not the Captain Zahari that I know.
Do you accept that you may not have really known him? I mean, do we really know people?
Obviously, there is a possibility, but very small percentage.
One of the greatest mysteries in the riddle of MH370 is how and where Captain Zahari spent his final days and hours. Was this a man preparing to commit one of aviation's most terrible and heartless crimes? And if so, why? Captain Zahari's last hours alive could provide the telling clue. Those who point to Zahari's guilt believe he was outraged at the trumped-up conviction of a man he believed was Malaysia's political saviour, Anwar Ibrahim. The conviction was handed down just hours before Captain Zahari took off in MH370. There's also speculation he left a note behind, never revealed by the authorities. Journalist Ian Higgins.
There was a pretty extraordinary coincidence, but did he leave a message and either it was never found or it got into other hands? Unless there's some part of the puzzle we don't know about, is that there was no claim of responsibility. And what's the point of doing something like that, making a political protest, if you don't let anyone know why you're doing it?
While a motive for Captain Zahari's involvement is almost impossible to pinpoint, to many, the smoking gun of his guilt is an eerie course he plotted on a home flight simulator program, only weeks before he guided MH370 into the night skies of Kuala Lumpur. The course mapped by Captain Zahari is chillingly close to the presumed actual route of MH370.
It made no sense whatsoever. It went up the Straits of Malacca, as MH370 did, and turned left, south, to the southern Indian Ocean. There's nowhere to land anywhere even close to that part of the world. It could only have been a suicide flight.
But despite this damning evidence, senior Malaysian officials still maintain there was nothing suspicious about Captain Zahari's flight simulation, even though for the first time tonight, they admit it did stand out among the 1,000 other flight simulations recovered from his computer.
Nothing unusual for pilots to have simulators at home, and they use that for training.
Why do you think he would have tracked a course deep into the southern Indian Ocean?
Okay, he also tracked 1,000 other flights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did any of them end in the middle of nowhere?
No, only one out of the 1,000 flights was in South Indian Ocean.
To land nowhere. Does that make sense?
I do not know, I cannot explain to you why that one particular flight landed in South Indian Ocean, but if you are trying to lead me that he tried to ditch aircraft, I wouldn't want to buy that.
But why would you map a route to the middle of nowhere?
Because it's a difficult route for training purposes, that would be ideal.
But I don't understand. It's a difficult route to where? Where is he hoping to land the plane?
In the water somewhere, maybe.
He's intending to land the plane in the water?
No, for training purposes.
So is it just a coincidence that it did happen?
Never know. History may tell us.
Coming up, inside the investigation's secret vault. It's eerie to think this fragment represents a giant aircraft lying somewhere at the bottom of an ocean with its passengers and crew. A desperate plea to Malaysia's leader.
Please don't give up on us.
And fresh hope for answers. Mr. Prime Minister, what do you think happened to MH370? That's next on 60 Minutes. How are you feeling about meeting the Prime Minister?
I'm nervous, so nervous.
Danica Weeks is in Malaysia on an extraordinary mission, and this is D-Day.
To find our loved ones, and so that's just null and void as far as I'm concerned.
A scheduled meeting with Prime Minister Mahathir to plead her case to resume the search for MH370.
This isn't just about 239 people on a Boeing 777. This is about 8 million people every day that get on a flight, and, you know, wives, husbands, family members off for holidays, work, that get on a plane and we don't know what happened.
It's unheard of for a world leader of Dr. Mahathir's standing to make time for a personal plea like Danica's. Everyone's tense until Malaysia's 93-year-old strongman makes his entrance. Good afternoon. Sarah Abo from 60 Minutes. Good afternoon. This is Danica Weeks.
Well, it's only 15 minutes for me, is it?
Yes, 15 minutes for you, thank you.
Where do I sit?
Sir?
He's gracious and just a little frail. But this is a man who formerly led his country for nearly 25 years and has now returned to take charge.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister, for taking the time today to come here and speak to me. I'm very grateful.
This is the first time the Prime Minister has met with a relative from MH370.
I just wanted to put a personal appeal to you to continue to search for the plane and in some way bring all our loved ones home.
We intend to continue, and nowadays with electronic detection, it may be possible for us to find where the plane had come down.
Well, that sounds very hopeful because it is very important, obviously for us and 5 years on, to have that right and that opportunity to lay my husband to rest and bring him home to us.
Yeah. Not knowing what happened is extremely distressing because you don't know whether he's somewhere or not. See, I appreciate that very much.
Mr. Prime Minister, it seems you do understand the heartache of the families of the victims on board. How would you feel if you had someone on board?
God forbid that it should happen to me. But I think I will be very, very upset. Very upset, especially as the search is terminated.
The meeting goes for nearly 30 minutes. The Prime Minister clearly has strong views on the MH370 investigation.
Not knowing whether they are alive or dead, not knowing where they may be, I mean, this is extremely upsetting.
What do you think happened to MH370?
One of the things I heard from the very beginning was that the plane was hijacked. But a plane of this size going down into the sea anywhere or on land must leave signs. But here there is absolutely no evidence. It's strange, as if suddenly the plane just vanished.
Being here in Malaysia, it seems there's a sense of national pride in Captain Zahari's innocence. Is that a blind pride?
I cannot think that a person who has been flying for so long, a very senior pilot, would want to do that. I don't know how he can make it disappear. I don't think anybody can answer this question.
We are committed to resume the search if there's a credible evidence. And we would like to see that we can find the plane and to give closure to the families.
After our meeting with Dr. Mahathir, he instructs his Transport Minister, Anthony Loke, who has refused all previous interviews about MH370, to talk to us. Is national pride blinding you to the possibility that Captain Zahari could be responsible?
Well, I mean, until and unless we find the plane and we found the black box, nobody can put any blame to anybody.
But is there a flaw in cancelling him out?
Well, I think we do not discount anything. I do not think that we discounted any evidence. So, but I think it's not fair to blame anybody at this point of time.
But when we look at his history, we look at the flight simulator program of his home, mapping a very similar course into the southern Indian Ocean.
We have never discounted any possibilities, and we are still committed for the search and to find the plane. So, I mean, as far as we are concerned, our main focus is that we hope that there are more credible evidence that will surface in the months to come, so that search can be resumed.
Then, by way of helping prove Malaysia's renewed commitment to the investigation, the Minister grants us what has been denied to all other media for years: direct access to the actual wreckage of MH370. It's eerie to think this fragment represents a giant aircraft lying somewhere at the bottom of an ocean with its passengers and crew. Fewer than 30 pieces of wreckage which may belong to the plane have ever been found. Only 3, including this one, have been confirmed as MH370. In the greatest of all aviation mysteries, this is hallowed ground. For international air crash investigators who've never had the chance to examine it, this piece of wreckage is key to finding out what really happened to the aircraft. But our access only emphasises a new commitment to openness we've discovered in Malaysia.
I think one thing, among others, is that for the first time, a television crew has actually seen the wreckage, seen the flap. Now, it's quite an achievement in its own right. It's quite a scoop journalistically, but it's more than that, I think. What it shows is that the Malaysians are starting to open up. They're opening up to the West, to Western journalists. It all shows a capacity to look at this again, to come to possible conclusions as to what might have happened to the aircraft.
But for that to happen, a decision must be made at the very top, from Dr. Mahathir himself.
Very much loved and many people look up to him. So whatever he thinks and feels will automatically garner the support of a vast majority of Malaysians.
Grace Nathan is the official spokesperson for the relatives of those lost on MH370. Her mother, Anne Daisy, was among them. She's astonished at news of Danika's private meeting with Dr. Mahathir. How important is it to get Prime Minister Mahathir across the line if Danica has planted a seed in his mind about finding MH370?
I think it's integral. I think it'll be his decision or his vote of confidence would be what sets everything in motion. Because he's not only the Prime Minister, but he's a very revered man. He has the ultimate say. And if he says it's a go, then we can rest assured that it will happen.
Do you, Mr Prime Minister, pledge to never give up the search for MH370?
Losing an aircraft is nothing, but losing people is something else. I mean, you can't sleep thinking about it. What has happened? What has happened? You keep on asking yourself that question, and you get no answer. For as long as there is hope, we will continue to think of ways and means to find out.
Thank you very much for your time, Mr Prime Minister. I really appreciate that. It's clear Dr Mahathir has been touched by Danika's plea.
Please don't give up on us. Thank you.
For now, it's between a Prime Minister and a mother. And the hope that MH370 isn't lost forever, it's just missing. Waiting to be found when the world wills it. Hello, I'm Sarah Abo. Thanks for watching. To keep up with the latest from 60 Minutes Australia, make sure you subscribe to our channel. You can also download the 9Now app for full episodes and other exclusive 60 Minutes content.